Welcome to Haunted Hospitality, Southern stories told by spooky gingers. I'm Robin.
And I'm Zoey.
And I have a story for you today. But first, Zoey, how's life?
Well, I have two major updates.
Okay.
Yesterday, I've already briefly told you about this, Robin. I tested for my blue belt in karate.
Yay!
Yes, that's the correct color. Yes, I tested for my blue belt in
It is,
karate.
yeah.
So I am dying slowly. It's okay. No, I did have to do like 1 million push-ups though. So my shoulders are very sore. And also, I'm not like terribly sore, can't even get out of bed sore. But it's like every time I lift my coffee mug, I'm like, yep, I tested for blue belt yesterday.
She hides it so well, guys. She's such a trooper. She's like a cat. She doesn't show you she's in pain.
How true that is. Anyway, sorry, emo scene
But
over.
like a Leo, she'll tell you anyway eventually.
Yes. Because I need the attention. I don't know if I got it yet, but fingers crossed.
And what's your second life update?
Oh, yeah. So, Robin, you retweeted this.
What did I retweet?
I am now going to be editing podcasts.
Yes. Yay!
I'm going to be editing podcasts on the side now. So
whoop.
I have my company Bubblegum Editing that I'm starting. And you can reach me at Zoey, Zoey, at bubblegumediting.com.
I'm very proud of you.
I'm proud of me too.
That's good. So you can be editing podcasts.
Yes.
And you're also on Fiverr.
I am also on Fiverr, but I prefer somebody reach out to me directly because my Fiverr prices have to be a little bit awkward because Fiverr takes a shot out of it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like if I say it's $10 for Fiverr, first of all, I have to do a flat rate on Fiverr, and so I can't do it hourly.
Yeah.
And if I do I can do an hourly on my own time, and that could end up being cheaper for someone. And also, let's say it's $10 is total because you only have like a 10-minute podcast or whatever. The person who bought it has to pay an additional fee, and then a chunk of that $10 is taken away. So I probably would only walk away with $8, and the person would technically pay $12 or something like that. So it's just better to reach out to me directly.
Okay, forget I said Fiverr.
I mean, you can go to Fiverr if you really want to.
No, forget it.
You
Don't
can
go there.
You can also go to bubblegumediting.com, and I designed a website.
Well,
What about you? What about your life?
like most times, I don't have any updates. I'm just trucking.
You're just
but
so boring.
Listen, I am doing good because it is warm now.
Yeah, you say that on a 55-degree day.
No, it was warm. Have you stepped
okay.
outside today? It's very
Kari
nice.
has. Kari
Okay.
had to put a hoodie on.
Okay, but when did he go out? Was it early morning?
It was about an hour before you got here.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was very nice today. It's the first day of spring. I'm just very happy because it's warm and because that means it's going to be spring and then summer and then I just feel free and then I feel the world just lifting off my shoulders and then your body. I don't know if you notice this, but when it gets warm outside, I don't know if you have like this interior tension in you when it's cold and it just like eases up. And I'm feeling that ease right now.
Robin, I want you to Google something when we
Seasonal
finish.
affective disorder?
Seasonal depression, but yeah.
Seasonal depression. No, I get that. I just didn't know what it was called, so I didn't say that. But anyway, I'm just feeling good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Do you have a something for us today?
I have a something spooky.
Yes.
And
I do love something Southerns, but something spooky is quite honestly my fave.
so, Robin,
Oh no.
what did the ghost teacher say to the class?
Oh god. What?
Keep your eyes on the board while I go through it again.
Because it's going through
Uh-huh.
the board.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Why don't ghosts convince anyone when they're lying?
Why?
Because everyone can see right through them.
Okay.
Robin, why do ghosts ride elevators?
Why?
It raises their spirits. Robin,
Yeah.
why does a ghost hate getting caught in the rain?
Why?
It dampens her spirits.
Oh god.
Robin,
Yeah.
what position does a ghost play on the soccer field?
No, I'm gonna actually think of it's not the goalie. That's the only one I know. What?
The goalkeeper.
Oh, ghoul.
Goalkeeper, yeah.
Okay.
That one. What does a ghost panda like to eat?
Bamboo.
Yeah!
Yay!
Why did the ghost...
How many are these?
There's only a few more.
Okay.
Why did the ghost go nuts on Black Friday?
I don't know why.
He's a bargain hunter.
Okay.
How did the ghost stay so fit?
How?
He exercised every day. Did you know that ghosts are into astrology?
No.
It's true. They read their horoscopes every day.
Okay.
Last one. A ghost walks into a bar at 12:30 a.m. The bartender says, "I'm sorry, but we don't serve spirits after midnight." That has been our Something Spooky.
Thank you. Did you come up with all those yourself?
Oh, no. Sorry. Yes, I did mean to source that. Hold on. That's from goodhousekeeping.com.
Lordy. Okay.
Now you know why I said Kari got play mad at me.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I enjoyed those jokes, and I think mostly I enjoyed how utterly tickled you are from those jokes. Well, thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I have a story for you today.
Yeah. I thought about messaging you before I came up with that idea.
Yeah.
Being like, hey, is your story, like, horrific? Because if so, I might not want to do this. But I was like, you know what? If your story is horrific, we need a little bit of joy at the beginning before we go into, like, the slaughter of 7 children or whatever it is you're going into.
So this is the joy at the beginning of the episode.
Yay!
Okay, we got the joy in. All right. So I have a story for you.
Mm-hmm. Is it the slaughter of 7 children?
No,
Okay.
it's not. July 27th, 1996.
Okay.
We are in Olympic Centennial Park in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
The Olympics were happening in Atlanta this year. It was the Summer Olympics.
Okay.
And everybody was kind of gathered in this park because it was not official Olympic grounds, but it was like where everybody would go who was coming to Atlanta would go and watch all these concerts that were happening, I guess probably buy things, and it was just the hangout spot when you weren't exactly watching some of the competition going on.
Okay.
And they had really had like just awesome security. Like they had 30,000 security personnel there, which was triple the amount of the actual athletes who were coming from around the world to compete there. And it was about 1 a.m. This band called Jack Mack and the Heart Attack were playing on a stage, and a man named Eric Rudolph, who was 29 years old, he was a carpenter, walked into the park. He was wearing jeans, a blue shirt, and he was on his back carrying a boxy, big, green backpack.
Okay.
He had been planning something for about 6 months. Originally, he wanted to wipe out the power grid in Atlanta, but decided against that. I don't know if it was that he just didn't think he could do it or not, but 6 months ago, he started trying to build a bomb.
Okay.
And 2 months before the Olympics, he told his family he was moving to Colorado, but he didn't. He stayed in his home in Murphy, North Carolina, in secret, building this bomb, which he put into this backpack. 3 pipe bombs surrounded by 432 nails.
Ooh.
He took it into the Olympic Park because he later wrote, I guess you could like see it as a manifesto. It was kind of also his memoirs, basically explaining like he's very anti-gay, very anti-abortion.
Okay.
And he wanted to do something that would humiliate the United States government, which he saw as basically being pro-gay and pro-abortion at that time. Okay? And so he wanted, it really was like terrorism.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So he brought the backpack into the park, he put it under a bench, and he set the timer. And it was a 55-minute timer. And then he walked away. Enter a man named Richard Jewell.
Okay.
Richard Jewell was a security officer, 33 years old. He was hired on temporarily to help with the games. Like I said, they had about 30,000 personnel. And he was there at the moment at like 12:50 or so a.m. He is trying to get this group of college students or college-age students who were throwing their beer cans at this tower to stop throwing their beer cans at this tower.
As college students do.
As college students do. So the tower held, like, sound techs and cameramen and stuff who were filming the concert that was going on and helping with, like, the spotlights and everything.
Gotcha.
And so he was just like, okay, rowdy kids, stop doing this. And, you know, they weren't listening to him.
Of course.
So he went and he got backup. So he left, got a man named Tom Davis, who was part of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, just because there were just a whole bunch of different bureaus, like federal, city, state, coming together to form security at this place.
Which makes sense.
Which
because
makes
it's the Olympics.
One thing to note is that there was like this, and I don't actually know how they do this. I read one thing that said there was like a 3D handprint scan or something you had to do.
Huh.
And this is 1996.
Yeah.
To get into like the actual Olympic grounds, but this was outside of those. So this is where anybody in the city could really come in, but
Right.
it still had, you know, security personnel around. So he got Tom Davis to come back, and when they got to the bench, all the kids had left, but there was the backpack under the bench, and he thought it was one of theirs because the actual college students did have their own big bags.
Okay.
But there was a protocol to follow if you saw an abandoned bag.
Which is good.
Which is good. So they called in 2 bomb specialists to come and look at this. And around this time, an anonymous phone call, which was placed by Eric Rudolph, he called 911. And this is quote is according to The Guardian. And he said, "There is a bomb in Centennial Park. You have 30 minutes. This call was placed at 1:07 a.m.
Oof.
So, and those two things kind of happen in tandem together, the timeline of discovering the bag and also when he called in. So, Richard Jewell, the security guard, this is before the specialist has had a chance to look at the bag yet. He's looking at this tower, which is right near the bag, and he goes up it, and it's like several flights of stairs. He counted, there were 11 people total in there. Every single floor he goes into, he tells them, there's a suspicious bag, we're getting somebody to look at it. We don't know what's in it yet, but if I come up here in a couple minutes and tell you to get out, you just need to run. So he was
Okay.
preparing them for that. So he went floor by floor by floor, telling everybody that, counted how many people were in there, and then came back down. So they had 2 specialists, and when one of them shone a flashlight into the bag, he came back out and he was very shaken, just because it was a huge bomb.
Okay.
3 pipe bombs, whole bunch of nails, and the whole thing is like, and I never thought about it until fairly recently, actually, because somebody was describing to me the difference in World War II grenades between the U.S. and between Germany. So the U.S. would put shrapnel in the grenades because the explosion isn't necessarily what kills you, it's the shrapnel that comes out of it.
Right.
Whereas the German grenades, they were more for just kind of stopping you in your tracks,
Okay.
injuring you, because it was just the explosion but no shrapnel.
Okay.
So, but this one had the nails, which would then go out, and that's actually what did the injuring and ultimately the killing.
No blame to you, obviously, if you didn't Google this answer, but do you know what the blast radius of a pipe bomb typically is?
Genuinely no.
Okay.
Do you know?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, that's what I was asking, because I'm like, 3 pipe bombs. Is that a lot? Like, you know.
I did not Google that. I assumed just from how shaken the guy was, who is a bomb specialist and who saw this. So Richard Jewell goes up the tower and he gets everybody to come out, and he, says, come out. And actually people were some people were delaying. Some people were trying to put like their cassettes in their bag. The people at the very top wanted to turn off the spotlights, and so he literally had to like grab some people and say, we need to get out of here now. And remember, the call that was placed at 1:07 a.m. from Eric Rudolph, but placed anonymously, said, you have 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. That was a miscalculation.
Okay.
It actually went off 22 minutes later.
Ooh.
Yes.
I was going to ask that, because I know you said like what time he said it, but I was like, I don't remember.
Yeah. So then everybody's out of the tower. He successfully evacuated the tower. They're clearing the area. I think I read that they got like everybody 50 feet from it cleared, but there were some people on benches who were just not getting up from their benches. And again, this is actually like really quick timing from the time that they realized, oh, hey, this is a major bomb. We need to get everybody out. It actually went off much quicker than anybody anticipated. So these guards, not Richard Jewell, but he was like running. I don't know if he was running at this point, but he saw them gathered up. These guards, it's because these people would not leave the benches, they stood in front of the people to shield them with their bodies.
Because of people's idiocy.
People's idiocy. I don't know if they quite understood what was going on. I don't know. It's like 1:20 a.m.
Yeah, but I feel like if a bunch of security guards are saying
you should
move,
get up. You should get up. You should get up. Anyway, so Richard Jewell, there's a blast, okay? It sounds like a cannon. He is knocked to the ground. He looks up and he sees these guys. They all survived, by the way, the security guards. They are literally flying through the air, though, from the blast.
Oh.
And because, you don't know what would happen to the people who were sitting down or anything.
Right.
They flew through the air. Tom Davis, who was the guy from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, who Jewell got for backup, he said to the AJC, which is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, he said, "It forced me to the ground. I just saw people laying everywhere, many of them screaming and hurt severely. One guy named Terry Tyson originally thought that the explosion was fireworks until he saw bodies, just because it's a whole bunch of light and heat."
Right.
And then one woman named Donna McCaslin also told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution she was with her friend, and I don't know if they were sitting together or what, but her friend got hit in the leg with shrapnel, so her friend got injured. And she said, "We saw people grabbing their body parts wherever they got hit. It was all such a blur. It happened so fast, in a mass of people who were freaking out. I constantly go back in my mind and say to myself, I can't believe I was there when it happened." Ultimately, 111 people were injured, and 2 people were killed.
Okay.
One woman, she was actually the only one killed from the blast itself. Her name is Alice Hawthorne. She was 44. She had driven from Albany, Georgia with her daughter, who was 14, to go see the rock concerts and enjoy the Olympic festivities. And the other person who died, his name was, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Mali Uzunyol, and he was a 40-year-old cameraman from Turkey, because all these journalists are coming from all over the world to cover the Olympics, and he was running to the blast, and I don't know if it was like a combination of the exertion and stress or whatever, but he ended up suffering a heart attack from it, so he's the second fatality that happened. And remember, it's kind of confusing as to what happened with the bomb itself, because remember how he said you had 30 minutes, it went 22 minutes off ahead. And he said, I think that Eric Rudolph eventually said that was a mistake or didn't quite comment on it, but the reason he placed a call, according to him, okay, and I don't necessarily think we should take his word for granted in this, but according to him, he placed a call ahead of time with the intention that they would clear everybody out of there in time, so when the bomb went off, it was making a statement, but it wasn't humiliating the government. Right. But it wasn't killing anybody. And he originally, actually, planned to do this 5 days in a row.
Oh.
He didn't end up doing that. Okay. And I don't know why, but he went back to his home in Murphy, North Carolina, without having any more bombs go off at the Olympics. Okay. But when people were investigating this, the FBI was thinking, and I think that this is also a very probable chance, is that perhaps he called in the bomb and maybe gave off the wrong time, so that when emergency people and investigators and all these government agents and stuff were around the bomb, then it would go off and get them specifically. Gotcha. Which is also very possible. Yeah. The Olympics people ended up having a press conference at 5:15 a.m., so this would be about 4 hours after the bomb went off. And they said that the Olympics would go on. Okay. They postponed it a day, but ultimately had it go on. I think that Eric Rudolph was hoping that, they would just cancel it indefinitely.
Because that would be more embarrassing, and...
That would be the embarrassing thing, because, whenever... It's not just, I honestly don't know exactly what goes into selecting Olympic cities, but I do know there's an awful lot of, campaigning and a whole bunch of people working to be this is the best city to host the Olympics in. Mm-hmm. And if it was hosted in the U.S. and it had to get canceled in the U.S., that would just be, a huge global... It would be seen as, a global failure. Right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when there's, so much money that goes into the Olympics.
Money that goes into the Olympics.
So much money.
I also didn't think about that until, this previous Olympics, I think. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was... I can't remember if it was China's or Japan's Olympics, because they both hosted recently because 2020 has got delayed. But there was just
The
something
one with the cardboard beds?
I didn't know anything about cardboard beds. I just knew that, like, so much money, because both of them had, you know, like, a lot less attendees than you would generally think. So they're actually had committed to spending all this money on the Olympics to not getting money back. So you actually make a lot of money as well, because people are coming from all over and staying in your city and patroning your places and stuff.
Yeah.
Now that global economics thing is over.
We could go into the Olympics.
We could go into the Olympics, but we're not going to.
No.
So Richard Jewell, the security guard who originally saw the bag and cleared out the tower and participated in clearing out the surrounding area, he was initially treated as a hero after the bombing, as he well should be.
Was he injured?
I didn't see anything saying that he was injured. I actually don't think he got hit by any of the shrapnel. So he was interviewed, like, did video interviews at CNN, and these people were, like, reaching out asking to interview him, okay, or asking his employer who they could interview, and since he was the guy who saw the bomb in the first place, they were interviewing him. Like, his interviews got played over and over for national media, and he was, like, really well known, and he was, for those first few days, really, again, treated as a hero, but he shortly became the #1 suspect. Do you remember any about this? Because your face looks like you do.
Was there a movie about this recently?
Yes.
Okay, so I've seen the trailers for that movie.
Okay, I haven't even seen the trailer, but yeah, it is.
Okay, so, because I thought that was outside of a football stadium from the trailers.
No.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this story sounds so familiar.
It is.
Okay.
You saw the trailer for what this would have, well, from what part of this would eventually become.
Right, okay.
Which I have not seen the movie. I was like, should I watch the movie? And then I was like, I just don't have time. So,
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it's directed by Clint Eastwood. It's called Richard Jewell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would
Yeah, yeah.
So he, like I said, he was initially a hero and then seen as the #1 suspect. And so the FBI, they started looking into him a little bit more because they got a call from a previous employer of his, Piedmont College. And the people at Piedmont College did not think that he did it, that he, like, put the bomb there or anything, but they were like, you know, he had worked security for us for a while. I don't know if, I can't remember if he ended up being fired or whatever, but he would, you know, he was campus security, but he would end up pulling over cars that were, like, speeding or reckless or whatever, I don't know, that were going along the neighboring highway. But that was not his jurisdiction.
Gotcha.
And so they ended up, I don't know if he ended up being fired, but he was not working that job at the time that he was, you know, working the
security position.
Thank you, security position. So they called just giving that information.
Which is a little, like, you know, in court where if they think that something isn't relevant, they throw it away. Like, it's irrelevant.
Well, they were thinking that it could, I don't know if the college was thinking this, but they wanted to give any information. But the FBI ended up thinking that potentially this guy could fit the personality of somebody who would plant a bomb to paint themselves as a hero so they could then get, like, a permanent, like, law enforcement position.
A hero complex. Gotcha.
A hero complex. Now, this is just, honestly, obviously he didn't do it.
Right.
And so this is just, like, how do I say, like, this was just their conjecture when they were looking for anybody who could have done it.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying Richard Jewell had a hero complex. He was just a hero, you know?
But that's what they were trying to
That's what they were trying to determine. And,
like, the firefighters, like, a percentage of firefighters are actually arsonists.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun fact, guys.
Fun fact.
But he also, so they were looking a little bit more into Richard Jewell, and he had worked in the U.S. Army as an explosives expert.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I think they were just looking at this and being like, is it him? Is it him? And so he was their #1 suspect, and then it got leaked to the press.
And then his life was ruined.
Yeah. The press really, they, you know, published it, they talked about it, they played back his videos, but now it's like the interviews that he'd given them, but now it was like, it's him as #1 suspect. And it took him quite a while to get cleared for this. So he ended up getting cleared in October. wait, do I have my timeline right? Yeah. So the bomb went off in July. 3 months later, in October, he got cleared.
Okay.
But just because he got cleared, it doesn't really undo the fact that you were just like number one enemy in the U.S. for a while.
Right, the court of public opinion.
The court of public opinion really did a number on him. He did end up getting ended up being like a deputy sheriff, and he did end up getting honored in a ceremony, I can't remember exactly the timeline on this, but possibly maybe like 10 years after the original bombing or something, in Olympic Centennial Park.
Okay.
But again, court of public opinion for just, it really did a number on him, and he ended up passing away in 2007 at the age of 44 from a heart attack.
Oh.
Yeah. And now obviously, like, we have that Clint Eastwood movie, and I think he's definitely, like, everybody knows he didn't do it now. Yeah. And I think everybody feels pretty bad. But yeah, that was just like a really unfortunate, I mean, everything that came out of this was incredibly unfortunate, but that's also one of the unfortunate things about it, just what it did to his reputation.
Right.
Now, Eric Rudolph went back to Murphy, North Carolina, which is in the mountains, FYI, that will come up. And he decided, okay, so before, he's very anti-gay, anti-abortion, and he targeted the Olympics as, I think, part of that, but now he wanted to actually target specifically like an abortion clinic. Okay. So on January 16th, 1997, so this is the following January, he bombed a place called Atlanta Northside Family Planning Services that did perform abortions. This was around the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And he put a first bomb there, and it put a hole into like an exterior wall, which then drew a crowd. And then he had the second bomb go off, which was also planted there, and nobody died. Okay. But 6 or 7 people were injured from the second bomb. So now you can kind of see, like, he's kind of like not playing with, but he's using the advantage of knowing how people work. They go to the bombing after it, and then he's starting to like try to, I mean, obviously he was always bombing, so he was always attacking people, but now it's like very specifically like, I know this is going to gather people and I'm going to get the people. Right.
It's almost more sinister because it's like baiting a trap rather than just senseless bombing. Like, quote, anyone could put together a bomb, but he's purposefully doing things to cause the most harm.
Yeah, like now there's, like, he tried to kind of get around it, and I don't know if that was him like actually trying not to hurt people in the first one, or if that was just him saying that he wasn't trying to hurt people but actually trying to hurt specific people. But now there's no denying, like, he's like actually like definitely trying to hurt people. And the next month, and again this is Atlanta, he bombed a lesbian bar called the Other Side Lounge, and there were 2 bombs in this one again. The first bomb did injure 5 people. Nobody died again. A bartender named Rhonda Armstrong told the New York Times that a woman, quote, rolled her sleeve up and had a spike nail through her arm. So again, he's doing nails. He's having them go out. So that was the first bomb. There was a second bomb in the parking lot, but by that point, investigators saw it, and they had a robot come in and detonate it. Okay. So it didn't get anybody. And actually, he was watching this one from a distance.
Like in person?
Yeah, Rudolph was there.
Okay.
He was watching it, and he was apparently close enough that he later said that the first bomb almost knocked him to the ground. Wow. And then the second one, he wrote that, like, he got kind of, like, a joy about watching the second one because he was saying that, like, the robot was trying to disarm it so it would never go off, but it ended up blowing up the robot, and so he was like, oh, but it got their robot. And I'm like, no, I think the reason you have a robot is so it doesn't get any people. Right. I wouldn't necessarily call that a failure, but he was just so keen to see anything as like a failure from them. Okay. You know, it's just weird. I didn't read his memoirs, but I saw this one article that I will link in my sources that just took a lot of excerpts from his memoirs, so you can kind of like see that in there. I would not want to read his memoirs, period. No.
And usually people who are messed up in the head like this to the point where they're bombing people, their memoirs tend to be pretty lengthy because they're a little self-centered.
I got the self-centeredness from but after this not final, unfortunately, but after this other bombing, we've now had 3 in Atlanta in about a 7 month span, and they at this point figured that all of them were connected. So we know it's like one guy, or I guess one group, behind all three of these. Mm-hmm. Next. And this is the final bombing.
Okay.
Yeah. He opened up a map of like the South, or I don't know, the US or something. He put his finger on Atlanta. Uh-huh. And then he drew a straight line west until he got to a city that was going to be big enough to apparently make an impact, he thought, like if there was a bombing there.
Okay.
He found Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
And he found an abortion clinic there called New Woman, All Women Healthcare. He did a lot of planning for this one. He actually went down a month ahead of time to scout. He watched the clinic, he watched the people coming and going. I don't know if he like knew who they were or knew them by their faces or what, but he made a notes of like when people got there, when they left, everything like that. And then he went back to Murphy, North Carolina, and he waited a month. And he waited a month so nobody would remember his face, and so that if there were any security tapes that caught him, they would have like taped over their old footage with new footage, and he would not be able to be seen in that. So he went back down, and on January 29th, 1998, so this is actually pretty much a year after the Atlanta bombings, he put a bomb into either a FedEx box or a toolbox. I saw both remarked upon. And he covered it in fake leaves. And he put it in the bushes outside of the clinic.
Okay.
He went there. He left and he came back in the morning, but he ended up coming there, I think, later than he intended, or people arrived earlier than he thought. But Emily Lyons was a nurse there, and she got to work at 7:30 that morning, and she saw a security guard named Robert Sanderson, who went by Sandy, and they both were going to enter the building because it was right by the entrance, the bomb was, and then they looked over and they noticed that something was in the bushes. They noticed that a box was in the bushes. And this is about the time that Rudolph showed up. So he saw people kind of going for the box, and I don't know if this is when he planned to make it go off, or if he just thought, oh, you know, if they find it, then that could mean that this is not going to be effective or whatever. But as Sandy was reaching for the box, he blew it up. Sandy passed away. Oh. And Emily, it took her eye out, and she ended up having chronic pain for the rest of her life because of this, you know, this attack. So, flash to a man named Jermaine Hughes. He is a pre-med student at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and he lives really, really close to the clinic in his dorm. His dorm was shaking from the bomb, and he ran outside, and this guy is so smart. He saw everybody running to the bomb, because, you know, when an explosion happens, you run to it, you see how you can help, you see who is hurt, you see what the heck happened.
Right.
And then he noticed one man was walking away.
Gotcha.
And it clicked in his brain. And honestly, like, you have to be just so aware of your surroundings to get that, because I think I could totally just see myself having tunnel vision and just, like, going to it, you know? But this guy was just so aware.
Or, like, even being like, oh, it makes sense that you're also running away from the bomb.
He wasn't running, he was walking. Yeah, that's, like, two things. So two things. So Jermaine gets into his car, and he is following Eric Rudolph
and commits vehicular manslaughter.
No, that's not how the story ends.
Darn it.
Jermaine follows Eric Rudolph, and he, like, I guess, you know, Eric's just walking. He's driving, and so he gets in front of him, and then he sees his face. He commits what he's looking like to memory. He pulls into a McDonald's, and, you know, nobody has cell phones. So he goes into the McDonald's. He uses their phone. He calls 911. He's giving them a description. Well, a man named Jack Tickle is eating lunch. No, Jeff Tickle. Sorry.
Jeff Tickle.
He is eating breakfast in McDonald's, and he's hearing, you know, like, Jermaine just talking to the cops and telling them everything that he saw, and he looks outside, and he's seeing the guy who Jermaine is clearly talking about, so he gets in his car, and he follows the guy. The guy ends up going into the woods, and he loses him for a bit, but then Jeff goes past this road and sees Eric Rudolph getting from the woods to a back road where he has hid his Nissan truck.
Oh.
And so he sees Rudolph get into the truck, go to the main road, or I guess go to the main road. He gets a look at Rudolph's face, and he gets his license number, which is KND 1117. And so...
Kids Next Door.
What?
KND?
Okay.
Sorry.
So, they don't catch him right now, okay?
Okay.
But, and again, nobody had cell phones. This would be so much simpler. People had cell phones. Be like, I'm following this guy. Get to him.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not what happened. But they know his truck, which is, like, semi-important, but only so much important as you get the license plate and you can run the license plate, because Rudolph, by this point, he knows people are after him. I think he knows that he was being trailed. Okay. Because he gets out of his truck when it gets close to the Georgia border, leaves it, and I don't know, maybe he hitchhikes. I don't know how he gets to North Carolina, but he gets to Murphy, North Carolina before the feds can or anything. But they know his name now. They know he did the Birmingham bombing, and it is a very, very easy connection that they make very quickly between the Birmingham bombing and all the Atlanta bombings. So they're like, okay, Eric Rudolph, by all accounts, is the Atlanta Olympic bomber. So they go up to his home in Murphy, North Carolina, and they don't get there fast enough. Rudolph goes to his home. He gets all the supplies that he's going to need to live in the woods.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to say he makes like a giant bomb, and then when police arrive to arrest him, he blows his house up with him inside.
No, that's not what happens.
I'm like leaping ahead of you.
You are very much leaping ahead of me. Like I do get like that very action sense. I'm realizing as I'm like describing like essentially not exactly a police chase, but like a citizen's chase.
Yeah.
But no, that's not what happened.
Okay, I'm being dramatic. Got it.
You're being dramatic, Zoe. Take a step back.
I'm sorry.
But Rudolph, again, he's okay. He's in Murphy, North Carolina. He's getting everything that he needs to live in the mountains. Then the feds show up at his house. He's left. They don't know what to do. Well, I guess they probably do know what to do. They get 200 agents involved.
Oh, wow.
They set an award for this guy for his arrest for $1 million. And
in the 1990s? Or early 2000s?
This is 1997, 98. This is 98, I think. They put up all this money for his arrest. They're using helicopters. They're using everything. They know this guy is in the mountains, or they suspect he's in the mountains. They're looking all up western North Carolina mountains everywhere. They've got dogs looking for this guy. They just don't find him.
Huh.
But Rudolph is in the distance watching them with binoculars pretty much constantly.
Huh.
Yeah. Over the years, the force looking for him dwindles from 200 to just a couple of them. By the way, the total that the manhunt cost, like just over the 5 years it does take for them to find him.
Dang.
I know, right? $24 million.
Dang.
That's the estimated cost. $24 million. And again, Rudolph is looking at them. He's looking at one in particular, especially, I think, as the force dwindles and dwindles. He looks at this guy named Todd Letcher. He's an FBI agent. Rudolph watches him come to and from the FBI headquarters near there. He knows he's looking for him. He makes a bomb.
Oh, gosh.
He puts it outside of the FBI headquarters, and this is a trigger bomb. This one is not timed. It's a trigger bomb. And he sees one morning as Todd Letcher arrives, and there's another man too, and they're close enough that he could pull the trigger. Rudolph doesn't pull the trigger. He later writes in his memoirs that he thinks he watched him too much, that he, like, started thinking of this guy too much as a person, because he said he was about to pull the trigger, and all he could think of was this guy's mother grieving. And he didn't do it. So they ended up being safe. I guess he removed the bomb. I don't actually know. But he was also planning to bomb an abortion clinic in Asheville and stole a 1967 truck to do it. He kept stealing like trucks and cars and stuff to get around. But it broke down on the way. So good. He was not actually able to do another bombing.
That's good.
Yeah. He survived by hunting animals. He stole grain. He stole from people's gardens. He was always around. I'm assuming he stayed in the Murphy area. And then on May 31st, 2003, a rookie police officer is doing like rounds at about midnight to 1 a.m. He goes up to this grocery store, which is, shut down, nobody there. He goes around it, and there's a guy crouched behind the grocery store. He thinks this is suspicious. He suspects that this guy's gonna try to do a robbery of the store or something.
Right.
So he gets out. The guy hides behind some milk crates. He gets out his gun. He tells him to get on the ground. He arrests him. I think he'd called backup, and backup arrived, and they're asking, this guy they found what his name is. And he says his name is Jerry Wilson, and he gives them a date of birth. And they run it through the system, and there's no Jerry Wilson that they can find with that date of birth. And the backup guy talks to the first police officer, and he says, this guy looks like Eric Rudolph.
Okay.
Again, this guy's in the FBI most wanted list.
Right.
People knew what he looked like. But they weren't sure. So they took him to the station, and, they got him in there, and then they looked up the poster, the FBI most wanted poster, and they printed it out for Eric Rudolph. And at this point, there's 3 or 4 cops standing around this guy, looking at the... I read this and I was like, really? Looking at the poster, and then looking at the guy, and then looking at the poster. And, Eric Rudolph's just watching them. And the rookie police officer who found him said the thing that really stood out, obviously, it looks like him, but it's a matching scar on the chin.
Okay.
Matching scar on the chin. So, the guy they're looking at says, well, no, they tell him, they say, tell us who you are. And he says, what does the paper say? And then they say, that's not what we asked. Tell us who you are. And he said, according to Queen City News, I'm Eric Robert Rudolph, and you've got me.
Aw.
So they got him.
I don't know why I said aw.
I don't know either.
Okay.
Yay! They got the guy. So, April 2005, I don't know why there's a 2-year gap in between, but I assume legalese.
Yeah, legal stuff going on.
Legal stuff that I probably could have found, but I was just like, nah. April 2005, he pleads guilty to all the bombings. The reason he pleads guilty is because if he didn't, it was very likely that it was going to result in the death penalty. So it was kind of like a plea bargain where, okay, I'll tell you I did it, but don't give me the death penalty. And also an additional thing in there, and I think this is probably the thing that really drove it home and had them do this deal, because I don't know, I'm looking at this and it seems to me that it would not be hard to prove that he did this.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the plea bargain was that he would tell them where he'd been, the 5 places that he had stashed explosives in the North Carolina mountains.
Oh.
And
that didn't exist?
No, they did.
Oh, okay.
And so he told them, and they cleared it out and stuff. But that's terrifying. I've been hiking in the North Carolina mountains a lot. We all have been. Collectively.
Luckily, you probably weren't doing it in the early 2000s, 90s.
No, but anyway.
Yeah.
It's just really freaky.
It is a very popular hiking spot.
Very popular hiking spot. Very freaky to think about. They cleared out all of the explosives. He ended up writing a book with his brother from prison. His brother helped him, called The Memoirs of a Militant, in which he talked about the reasonings behind everything, his reasonings behind everything.
Right.
I guess detailing his crimes. Again, I didn't read the book. I'm not gonna. At the plea hearing, he apologized to the victims and families for the Atlanta Olympic bombing, but he said he did not regret the January Birmingham bombing. He is still alive. He is in Florence, Colorado, in a very high security prison where they put very dangerous people, including the Boston Marathon bomber and one of the planners of 9/11.
Okay.
Again, Richard Jewell, he did end up getting some restitution for all this. He sued a number of the big media organizations who were just kind of putting his name on blast, and he won several or a lot of the lawsuits against him, and he was a deputy sheriff by the time he passed away, but he passed away very young. In November 2021, so this is very recently.
Okay.
It's just 5 months ago. 25 years after the Olympic bombing, they held an event to honor the police officers, guards, and specifically Richard Jewell for all the work they did protecting people on that day. And they held it by a memorial that's there called the Quilt of Remembrance. And I don't know if it's actually a literal quilt. I bet you it's not. But it's just, put there to mark
what happened that day.
What happened that day in honor of all the people who were injured and died.
Right.
Yeah, so... And he had a Clint Eastwood movie after him.
Yeah.
In 2019, which I do want to see at some point. And when it premiered in Atlanta, his mother, you know, because he had passed away by that point, but his mother came up onto the stage and, you know, I think said some words, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he alive when Rudolph was in jail or arrested? You said he died at 44, but I don't remember how old he was.
Actually, I guess... Yeah, he died in 2007, so yeah.
Yeah, so he did get to see him arrested.
He did get to see him arrested.
That's good.
And so, yeah. Thanks for listening to that story.
Thank you for telling me that story.
Yeah.
It makes me slightly more interested in the movie, but that's not typically the type of movie that I watch, so I probably still won't watch it.
That's fine.
But
at least it exists.
So,
it exists. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Robin.
Yeah, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, subscribe, tell a friendo, and subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/hauntedhospitality. We have $3 tier and a new episode every month.
Yes, every month on the 13th because we're spooky.
Woo.
If you want to see Robin's sources for this episode, you can go to hauntedhospitality.wordpress.com. Also, if you want to write us your own spooky story, whether that be true crime or supernatural, you can email us at hauntedhospitalitypodcast@gmail.com.
We are also on the interwebs. You can find us at Haunted Hosts on Twitter and on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Haunted Hospitality. We hope to see you there.
Stay spooky.